Hello and welcome back to the Will I Vike It podcast. I'm your host, Craig, and today my guest is Raymond Rowe from WWE. How you doing?
Hello. I'm great, man. Thanks for having me. I think we've been talking about this podcast for like 4 or 5 months, maybe more. So I'm glad
I think you were one of the first people that I asked when I started the show, which was November 22. And so it's been a while.
That sounds about right. That sounds about right. And just to clear up that's 100% on me.
You need permission to come on though, don't you? So it's all
Yeah,
good.
but then I had permission and I just forgot about it for a long time. So, yeah, it was that's all me. That's 100% me. Craig did what he was supposed to do.
It's not like you've got anything else going on, right?
Well, yeah, you know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we'll get into all that. So, yeah, I've had anyone that's listened to the last episode. Sarah was on the last one. And so you're reenactors, you're wrestlers, you're homesteaders, you're hunters. Like, you do a lot. And parents, of course. I miss Cash. I shouldn't have forgot Cash.
And I feel like that's the one that takes the most time and energy is chasing that little monster around.
Yeah, man. So, yeah, I thought initially we would go into a bit about your career as a wrestler.
Sure.
I mean, it's not something that I've said this before, so anyone that watched Sarah's will know I'm not up to date on wrestling too much. I've watched a little bit recently of you guys on YouTube and stuff just to try and do some research. But yeah, so your interest in wrestling initially, I'm assuming that you were a fan growing up.
Oh yeah, I actually watching wrestling on Sunday mornings with my father is some of my earliest memories. And he and I actually used to go to a different church service than the rest of the family, so that we could be home in time to watch like Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant, Sergeant Slaughter, and Macho Man. I'm 9 years older than Sarah, so like a lot of my introduction to wrestling happened a lot earlier in my life and a lot earlier in wrestling. So like I remember I was still in grade school, or primary school when like Hulk Hogan was fighting the Ultimate Warrior, and I remember getting into a my first ever fist fight was because I was a diehard Hulkamaniac, and a kid in my class was the Ultimate Warrior. He supported the Ultimate Warrior, and I don't remember who said what first, but he was telling me that Hulk Hogan sucked, and I was telling him that the Ultimate Warrior sucked, and then words led to fists, and that we were second or third grade, and we're punching each other on the playground, and I remember we're getting into like we had to have a conversation about where wrestling fit in life and what was important for our school and stuff like that. But like that was some of my earliest memories and most fond memories of my childhood involve wrestling, watching wrestling, beating up other kids on the playground about wrestling. Normal stuff.
I can remember one of my cousins laying into me once because I said that Bret the Hitman Hart was shit.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Can't say
and
that.
He was a big fan.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's those are fighting words where I'm from.
So, at what point did you realize that it was something that A was a career and B was something that you wanted to pursue?
So, when I wasn't quite in middle school yet, so I was in fifth grade, and my dad told me that if I wanted to be a pro wrestler when I grew up, the best path for that was to become an amateur wrestler. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that's what my dad told me. So I joined like my school's wrestling team, and I was really upset to figure out that we couldn't swing steel chairs or jump off the top rope. But through that, I developed a love for amateur wrestling. And I spent my entire childhood, amateur wrestling, and I, wrestled all through high school, and in the 2 years of college that I attended, I was, I competed in amateur wrestling at a very high level. I traveled the country. I got to see things that I wouldn't have seen if I wasn't an amateur wrestler. So like I really, really loved that, and it helped, helped develop my athleticism and my, my strength base and my whatever leverage and stuff like that actually has really, really helped in my professional career. My dad ended up being right, whether or not he knew that at the time, or he was just trying to get me onto the wrestling team. It did become, lay the groundwork for that. And then when I was in high school, one of my high school wrestling coaches, his younger brother was a pro wrestler. And so he grabbed me at one point, and everybody knew I was a giant wrestling fan, and he was like, "Hey, you really want to do this stuff?" And like really kind of disrespectful about it, like real dismissive. And I was like, "Yeah, coach, I do. I really want to do that." And he was like, "Well, if you're gonna do it, you should do it right. My brother is a pro wrestler, and that's the first conversation he and I had ever had. I didn't even know he had brothers." And I was like, "Oh man, what?" So then he put me in contact with him. That guy started training me. That his name was actually his wrestling name was Beef Stew Lou Marconi, which is the coolest pro wrestling name ever.
Nice.
And then he started training me, and then through him, where I was training, I ended up running into another guy named Josh Prohibition, who was a fellow straight edge kid. And I worked with Josh. So I started with Lou for like maybe 2 or 3 months, and then Lou had some life stuff that he stepped out. Josh stepped in, and I trained with Josh for the next year. 2-3 times a week, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day. Like, I mean, I basically lived, part-time with Josh. And like Josh took me to my first like shows. Like I remember, cause I was still in high school at that time, like he brought whatever little, piece of shit car he was driving. He drove over to my mom's house, and like my mom had to meet him before I was allowed to like drive 6 hours away, to go join the circus with them. So it was a cool thing. And like, I'm still friends with Josh now. Like he's in his early 40s. I'm about to be 40 this year. And like talking back all this, I met him when I was like 17, 18 years old, like just getting into wrestling. And like, it's kind of cool to still have those friendships that last that long through wrestling. But it was in high school when I realized like, oh, I could do this. And then I never thought that I would do it for a living. I always kind of thought that it was going to be a thing that I did and I didn't really make money at, but it was a thing that I wanted to do. Like, Sarah and I, she might have explained it this way too. Like, independent pro wrestling is a lot like independent music, right? Where there's small bands that play in bars and country and nightclubs and stuff like that, all across the country, all across the UK. And they might make a couple $100, but then they've got to go back to their real job on Monday. And then, but they're a big deal for those 2-3 hours when they're on stage. And then, they go back and they're working working at a grocery store the rest of the week. But then, on the weekend they're on tour and they're doing their thing and they're a rock star. And like, that's what I kind of thought my wrestling career would be. And that's what it really was for a really long time. And then eventually I got a break with a company called Ring of Honor that signed me to a full-time contract that put me on national TV. And then Ring of Honor led me to New Japan. Ring of Honor led me, actually put me together with Todd Hansen, who became my tag team partner, one of my best friends, who is still my tag team partner now. But Ring of Honor led us to New Japan. And then New Japan is like the #1 wrestling company in Japan, and probably like the #2 or #3 wrestling company in the world. They're a super prestigious, they're like, when I went to New Japan, I was like, I've made it. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. It was the best thing. It was a dream come true. And then in New Japan, WWE came calling. And at first I was like, this can't be real. Like, there's no way that they want us to come there, and fast forward, like we just celebrated our 6-year anniversary of signing with WWE. And it's, and I feel like it's as crazy as that is, like we've now been, Todd and I have been a tag team inside WWE longer than we were a tag team outside of WWE, even though a lot of the fans who know us really knew us from our Ring of Honor days or our Japan days. and they, excuse me, they talk about that a lot, or they still call us by the names that we were using back then. And like we've existed as a tag team together longer now in the WWE than before the WWE, which is mind blowing. Like he and I were just talking about this yesterday, and because it was we just passed the 6 year mark of us being hired by WWE, and in some ways it feels like he and I are just getting started with WWE. Like there's so much more we have to do. There's so much more like potential that we're capable of doing and we're looking forward to doing, and like it's a really exciting time to be wrestling. Like I feel like we're in a pro wrestling renaissance right now, where everywhere you look, every company is succeeding. All the talent are getting opportunities, and they're able to make careers of this, and they're able to pursue their art form on a level and in front of an audience that didn't exist when I started wrestling back in 2003. It really has exploded over the last 10 years, and it's an amazing thing to watch happen from the inside and from the outside.
Yeah, because I guess it probably back in the days when you were watching with Hulk Hogan was probably almost when it peaked back then, I guess. And then it kind of leveled off for a while. So it's coming back.
Yeah, and like it, wrestling is like any other entertainment field, that like there's peaks and valleys, and there's cycles where it's it's going to be really, really, really popular, and then it kind of goes down, and then you know what I mean? Like it's just that cycle of entertainment. You know what I mean? You can do the same in Hollywood, where like for like 5 or 6 years, all you see is big budget, sword and sandal movies. And then they go away for a while, and now it's romantic whatever, or it's World War II movies, and then that happens for a little while, and then something else comes, and then you know what I mean. It's like that same thing happens in every field of entertainment, and pro wrestling is no different. And like the cool thing about pro wrestling is that we're able to adapt to those trends and those kind of pop culture and the way that goes, to where we can evolve our entertainment style, and we can evolve our presentation to stay relevant in a way that some other kind of entertainment forms can't. So it's a really interesting and dynamic entertainment form, because it has that live element. It's like live theater, right? Like every time you go in a wrestling ring, you're in front of 100,000, 10,000, 100,000 people, and you're able to interact with them in a way that you can't just through a screen. You can, when you're at a wrestling show, it almost feels like you can reach out and touch the wrestlers. And it's a connection emotionally that you can't really get in other art forms, which is magic. It's magic. It's and from this side, it's addicting, right? Because you get that interaction on a level that you can't get anywhere else. You can't get in any other type of art form. You can't get in any other type of entertainment. It's a really, really special thing, that give and take.
It's not something I've ever seen live, I don't think. Actually, no, there was a small show I went to when I was a teenager at a local theater. And so actually the stage had the ring on it. So everyone was on the one side of the ring. In fact, I think one of Legion of Doom was there, I think.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So I've done, and actually through the UK, I spent some time touring through the UK, and I've done some theater shows there, and I've done some of those smaller venue shows. And I mean, that's a lot of fun. The first time I came and wrestled in the UK, I was shocked, because like the fans there are totally different than American fans. They entertain themselves, like they're doing soccer chants and songs, and making up songs about our name and stuff like that. It's a really fun crowd to work in front of, because they're doing things like that I wasn't prepared for. You know what I mean? They're making up names, like rhymes and songs for our names and stuff like that, and like or like making fun of people but doing it in song form. And so the whole crowd they're not chanting at you, they're singing at you. It was a culture shock thing that was really, really fun and really, really cool to be a part of.
So with your tag team, how did you both get put together, or did you do that independently?
No, it was actually so we wrestled each other, and the company, that Ring of Honor that we were both had just signed brand new contracts for, and we were both kind of at similar stages of our career where we had been bouncing around and not making a lot of money by ourselves. We had this opportunity with Ring of Honor. We were really excited about it. And when we wrestled each other, they liked how we looked in the ring together, right? And they were like, "Well, have you, we don't have kind of an opportunity for you guys to be a single star right now," which we both were. We were both singles wrestlers, and they were like, "But we are thinking about putting you together as a tag team, and then a couple months down the road, once you're established with the crowd, we'll break you guys up, and then everything will be, you'll go back to being a singles guy." So we both, Todd and I, talked about it. We're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like that sounds great." Once this thing kind of runs out in 3 or 4 months, we'll go our separate ways. It'll be, we'll be better for it. And fast forward, almost 10 years at this point, and we haven't run our course yet. So it's a really cool thing, but it was 100% on Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor put us together, and and then we ran with it. So we took that act to New Japan, we took that act to NXT, we took that act to WWE, and it's something that he and I now have like really developed a lot of pride with, and developed a lot of expertise with, is tag team wrestling in a way that like a lot of tag teams are kind of thrown together, or or odd couples, or like don't really mesh. Like right now, it doesn't, like him without me or me without him doesn't make sense. We're so much like we're a full-time tag team. You know what I mean? There's some really, really great full-time tag teams in the history of pro wrestling. And we, by the time our careers are over, we wanna etch our, make our statement that we belong on those. Yeah.
Because I think he's wrestling on his own at the minute, right? Well,
He is.
with Valhalla's help.
Well, and thankfully he's in a position creatively that he's able to do that, and he's getting some really good opportunities. For anyone who doesn't know, back in October, I had to have neck fusion surgery. I had a really bad injury that happened in the ring, and I was dealing with nerve pain and muscle and strength loss and muscle loss for like 6 months almost. And then I got the surgery. We kind of turned a corner, and we realized, like, with the doctors, we're like, "Hey, look, it's not getting better with therapy. We're going to need to do the surgery." So I'm currently recovering from surgery. They said it's like a 6 to 8 month recovery period. So, I had the surgery in October. So hopefully April or May, June, whatever, I'm back, and we're hitting our full stride. So it's it's a frustrating process being hurt. But it's just trying to listen to. I've got the best doctors in the world, and they're taking the best care of me. That it's really, really good, and WWE is being amazingly supportive and making sure that I have the best care that I possibly can, and the best advice that I possibly can. So I'm just trying to do what the doctors tell me, and do my rehab, do my recovery, and come back, bigger, stronger, faster, and make up for lost time.
I don't know if you'll want to go into it, but is that in any way related to the accident you had?
No, not at all. Not at all. No, I was in a motorcycle wreck in 2014 that should have killed me. And I completely shattered my left arm, and I had to have surgery there. So there's 2 plates and 18 pins and screws in there. It was I was out of wrestling for about 6 months that time too. And it was actually just when we had just formed our tag team. We were just getting a little bit of momentum, and then I got in that wreck, and I was out for 6 months. So it's we've done that. And then Todd has actually had the same neck surgery that I did during COVID. He actually had a traumatic neck injury, and had.
Do you know? I saw the video a couple of days ago.
Yeah. He had the same neck surgery, but it was actually a 2-level fusion. Mine's only a 1-level fusion. So hopefully I'm able to come back a little faster than he can. When he and I have only ever wrestled once, and he beat me, so he's got that little bragging right. So if I can come back from my neck surgery faster than he came back from his neck surgery, then I'll have that bragging right on him.
Yeah. So your wrestling personas, the Viking Raiders and Valhalla. Where did the idea from that come from? Did you guys develop that yourselves, or were you pushed that way?
No, so so when we got together, I was Raymond Rowe, and my character was more like a street kid from Cleveland. You know, it was kind of like my real life just turned up to 11. And Toddy was Hanson, and he was kind of had this like barbaric like costume that he would wear. He, you know, kind of like not really just like general kind of barbaric stuff. And when he and I got together, we started kind of we like meshed those styles, right? So we could be a little bit more of a cohesive tag team. And over time, we started leaning more into like pop culture Viking look, right? Like, you know, furs and leather and horns and stuff like that, you know. And then right around, so like he and I got together in 2014, and when Sarah and I got together in 2016, you know, she and I started Viking reenactment shortly thereafter. But like I was always kind of interested in, I had been going to Renaissance fairs and, you know, stuff like that, and I was kind of interested in Vikings. So I kind of just led that, you know, as we got together in the tag team, I kind of led the artistic kind of travel from like generalized like big guy leather barbarian to more like pop culture Viking barbarian type, you know, for lack of a better word. And then like as Sarah and I got more and more into Viking reenactment, the characters that Toddy and I had started like sprinkling in more and more Viking stuff and going more Viking stuff. We started using Viking names. We started using, you know, for our moves, we became Viking names and, you know, stuff like that. And then where we could, we would sprinkle in, you know, bringing Viking, you know, like historical Vikings, like members of Jomsborg and stuff to the ring with us and different stuff. And then we were War Machine before WWE. When we came to WWE, they were like, yeah, you know, there's this little company called Marvel that has trademarks and stuff. So we needed a new name, and they had given us a couple ideas, and they were like, you know, what about War Raiders? And we pitched a bunch of different names, and I was like, well, what about Viking Raiders? And they were like, no, we're going with War Raiders. Cool. So we were the War Raiders for about a year in NXT. Then when we went up to main roster, we got called up to Raw, and they were like, "Hey, we're changing your name. You know, we're not sure what we're gonna. You know, we want to call you the Vikings." Well, the Vikings was clearly trademarked. It was, you know, not a thing that was going to happen. And we were like, well, "What about Viking Raiders?" And they're like, "Yeah, we're not sure." And then for one night only, we were the Viking Experience. And which the Twitter has never forgotten or never given us. And then the next week we were the Viking Raiders. So, and we've been the Viking Raiders ever since. So it was definitely a thing. Like that formulation of the name was an idea that we had, but like the artistic, like we never, no matter what, whether we were War Machine or War Raiders or Viking Raiders, all of the costuming, all of the image, all of the kind of, you know, creative stuff that we did ourselves and the look and all that stuff was always us. Like we were kind of the same team no matter what you called us. It was, but it was definitely kind of influenced more and more like Viking, specifically Viking over time. We got more and more Viking, and because wrestling is wrestling and it's, you know, lights and cameras and stuff like that, it's never been like historical Viking. It's always been like over the top fantasy, you know, Conan the Barbarian meets Vikings, you know.
Yeah, because I mean, I have seen some criticism on places like Facebook of your wrestling personas from reenactors. So I don't know whether you want to defend that stance, because I know in real life you're also serious reenactors as well.
Yeah,
so you know what it does
like
look like, but
it's
Yeah.
it's silly. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, I feel like people on Facebook or social media in general will always find something to complain about. Always.
Yeah, sure.
I just posted pictures. Sarah and I just had some really nice pictures done by a photographer. We hadn't had family pictures in a long, long time, so we did some photos in our Viking kit, and I
Yeah.
have like a painstakingly researched and well constructed and like hand sewn Viking kit that's completely based on like 10th to 11th century Hedeby, right?
Yeah.
So every stitch that I wear, every weapon that I have, all the the belt buckles and the shoes and all of the stuff, everything is
Yeah.
10th to 11th century Hedeby, as close as I can reconstruct it, right? Because ultimately, even like those scraps of clothing that we have that we know for a Bible fact, like they're for sure accurate. This is accurate, right? But
Yeah.
it's like a piece, it's a scrap, it's like this is this part of the tunic, right? And then we
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that we know what this tunic really looked like. I mean, we've got like iconographical like uh justification, like, oh well, this stone carving, or this bayou tapestry, or this whatever, this book of Kells, right? Like,
Yeah.
that it shows more about what it is. And like, yes, so we have general ideas. So like, but I'm sure that if I posted those pictures that we just had taken of my best attempt at a historically adequate Hedeby kit, Viking kit, based to like within 100 years. Like, there's nothing I'm wearing that's like, you know, one or the other, like one region,
Yeah.
one time period, one costume. I'm sure that people would still tear it apart, just because from social media, it's really easy behind a
Yeah.
keyboard to be the most expert. And I've seen, like, there's been a couple memes that like reenactor friends will send me because they see something with like me and Toddy and Sarah on it, and like they're somebody like they ordered Vikings from Wish or something like that, and it's us. And
Yeah.
and it's funny because like I know like what an accurate Viking is, and like we do have accurate Viking stuff, but we also have the pro wrestling Viking. Like, I'm sorry, but pro wrestling is not the medium where you're going to get historically accurate turn shoes and tunics and whatever. This is
Yeah.
this
It's
is
quite
glitz and
inappropriate to
glamour.
wrestle in, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
no, I mean, like the clothes are super functional. I mean, we go out and
Yeah.
fight and live in them for weeks at a time, which is
Yeah.
great.
Sure.
But like, it's not as sexy, right? Like, you want fur and leather, and everything with wrestling is over the top. Everything with entertainment
Yeah.
and stuff like that is over the top. So like it's even like you're not going to have a rock band. You're not going to have a Mon Amarth in historically accurate Viking clothes. Even people like Wardruna, or Danheim, or some of these like bigger Viking bands, they don't wear historically accurate clothes. They wear Hollywood accurate clothes. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's just people that complain about it, man. They're gonna find something to complain about anyways. Like, we have fun.
People
I
do like to
love the
complain.
costumes that we wear in the ring. I think they're fun. I think they're exciting. I think they give the flavor of Vikings. But it's not, I have never pretended like it's an accurate Viking portrayal.
Yeah.
um we do try to sneak in some accurate Vikings when we can. Like, our entrance video has like a bunch of our accurate Viking like paraphernalia, right? Like, real swords, or a Gearmanbu helmets, or different things that like we try to kind of like Easter egg, like, here we go, here we
Yeah.
go. And like we've done some things where we've brought our reenactor friends in like a backstage, offsite promo thing where, you can see the reenactors, or we brought them out on stage with us or something. And those guys are wearing like legit riveted chainmail and accurate helmets and clothes and stuff. But from us being the wrestlers, we can't do that. It's got to be over the top. That's what people want to see. So that's what we are. You know what I mean? Like, and people on social media are going to be upset about no matter what I do. So they're going to,
Yeah.
is what it is.
Yeah, that's fair. So I think originally we started off when we first started speaking on Instagram via Instagram Messenger, probably a couple of years back, I think.
Yeah.
I think initially you contacted me because we've got the same shield design, or pretty much the same shield design.
So that's not actually when we first started, it was because of your cookbook.
Was it?
I reached out. I reached out because of your
Yeah,
cookbook initially,
yeah,
and then because we were trying to be more, we were trying to be more accurate and come up with some Viking dishes, and
yeah.
I thought your cookbook was really fascinated, and I had some questions about it, so I just was like, man, I'll let me try. You know what I mean? I'll send you a couple messages. You were super responsive and like answered questions, and like I thought that was awesome because I saw your cookbook. I bought your cookbook on probably on Amazon or something like that.
Yeah.
And then we had some questions about it because I think I was trying to like upscale your recipe. Like this is a
Yeah,
cool
that's right.
this is a cool recipe for 4 people, but can I make it for 40? And like whatever. And then that
Yeah.
led us to talking. But then like it was kind of cool that like once we kind of had established a conversation and discussion and relationship a little bit, I noticed because I think you posted something or you got tagged in something, and your group's Viking shield is like the same color scheme, the same design as ours. It's just turned differently, right? Like mine is
Yeah.
let me see. I got mine up on the wall, but I can take it off. So mine is right
Yeah, yeah.
like this.
I don't know if I've got mine here. Actually, I do.
Yours is like that, right? Yours is a cross.
Yeah.
Yeah, yours is a cross, right?
So
Yep.
that's where my handle is this way.
Yeah. Okay, so it's this way then, right? Yeah. That's I don't know which. Mine is red. Mine is an X. Mine looks like the X-Men symbol. It's
Yeah.
red up and blue on the side. But it's yeah, it was kind of a cool thing to be like, oh man. And then we talked about it and we're like, oh, should we change, should we change the design? Should we,
Yeah.
whatever, it's too close, but who cares? Like that's it doesn't bother me. If it doesn't bother you guys, I'm good with it. I like our colors. I like the shield design. Um,
Yeah.
and like most of the time, like our group, that's only our like local chapter, right? Like my local chapter is Lockyer Lag, and we
Yeah.
are a oath-sworn lag in the Army of Yamsborg. So my shield that I take to international events is this one, is the
Yeah.
Einherjar shield, the black and the black, red, and white. So like if I were coming over to the UK for an event, this is what I would be carrying. I wouldn't be carrying the red and blue one. So it's
Yeah.
not even like we would get confused on the field. It would just be if you guys came to Cleveland, then you would see a lot of these shields. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's it. I didn't come up with the design. Our group leader, or ex-group leader now, he's the authenticity officer for the Viking Society in the UK.
Yeah.
And he came up with it. I think he played around with different pigments and things to try and get as close to historically accurate as he could. But complete
Yeah.
coincidence. It's just one of those funny things.
Yeah. And for us, like we had it's funny because like the local group that became Lockyer Lag was started by myself, my wife, and one of my best friends who's still in the Viking group, Alex Van Ness. And when we were talking about it, we were talking about different designs. We were talking about whatever because we needed a shield to like be us, right? And the
Yeah.
initial name of the group was Clevikes, so it was like Cleveland Vikings, right? And we condensed it to Clevikes. And we decided on these colors because red and blue were at the time the Cleveland Indians, right? And they're now the Cleveland Guardians, the baseball team of the in Cleveland, Ohio. And then gold and wine and gold were the Cleveland Cavaliers. So we kind of liked those colors, and like primary, red, blue, and red, blue, and gold and yellow are primary colors. They go with everything. They're a great combo. So then we tried to get the same type of thing, like the pigments and the, making it a Viking accurate shades and stuff like that. But like, it was kind of like a Cleveland, like for us, it was a Cleveland identifier, right? Like these were Cleveland colors. But we made them Viking age, and then we just loved that design. So we stuck with the design, but ours is very clearly an X. And for me, that was a little tag to, like, I'm straight edge, right? I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do any drugs. So for me, all of my stuff, you see the X's on just about everything. I grew up as a hardcore kid, hardcore music and punk rock music and stuff like that. So like, whenever I can include or hide little X's in my stuff, I always do. That makes the 14-year-old hardcore kid happy. So I of course my Viking shield was going to have an X on it. So that's what we did.
Yeah. So I think your parents and everyone in your family are involved with your group too, right?
Yeah. So, it's funny, like the family that Vikings together stays together. Sarah and I are enablers, right? So we had a fully Viking wedding. And like it's funny because like when we started Viking reenactment, I was like, we don't have time for this. Like, we don't have time to be Vikings. We don't have time, to go to Viking events. We can go as Vikings to like one event a year, maybe, or like we can go as Vikings to a Renaissance festival because there's no commitment. And then we went to one training with Mirlag, who was the Swamp Vikings. They're a part of Yamsborg in Florida, where we were living at the time when Sarah was in NXT. And then we literally rearranged our entire life to become Vikings. Like, we didn't have time. So we changed everything in our life to make sure that we could become Vikings. And then when when it was time to get married, we wanted to have a Viking wedding. So we pooled resources with a bunch of our reenactor friends and like got like the biggest borrow back box together that we could. And then we bought a bunch of, the kind of cheapest tunics we could find that were still like looked apart and were pretty good. Like, there were linen ones. And then all of our family and friends that came to the wedding, whether they were Vikings or not, dressed in Viking garb. Right. So the whole wedding was Vikings. And then my family kind of was like, once we got married, we moved home to Cleveland, and like my family has come out to events. My mom is like a master knitter, and she's like she can like spin her own wool and create her own yarn and then do the thing. And she actually has done like turn of the century type reenactment, where she would go to a festival and like have a spinning wheel and teach that type of stuff. But she sewed her own clothes and did all that stuff. And I didn't really, even remember that until we got into Viking reenactment. We're talking. She was like, "Oh yeah, well, we used to do Yankee Peddler and da da da." And I was like, "Oh man, I totally forgot about that," because it was when I was a kid and I didn't remember that. But so we've taken her to a couple events, and like, everybody comes around and they're like, "We must protect Mama Rowe." She's a full-time granny now. So she just, it's really cool when like her and my dad come out and they're in Viking kit, and like we've got our son who's in Viking kit, and like they're awesome because they come to they come to events with us, and they're able to watch Cash so that Sarah and I can fight. Right. Like, we brought them, we all went as a family to Germany last May, and we went to there was a big Yamsborg anniversary event at the Oldenburg Wall Museum. And my parents went. It was the first time they were ever in Germany, which was cool for them to come across. We did some tourist stuff for a couple days before, and then we went to the Viking event, and like they just followed Cash around that, the historic wall museum. And Sarah and I were able to fight all day, for Friday and Saturday. And then Sunday we drove back to Berlin, jumped on a plane, flew back to America to go to Raw. It was just it's travel with us is intense. So we try not to stress my parents out a little too much with it. We don't like try to do it too much with them, but yeah, like it's really cool that they just go with it. Right. Like, they want to be involved because their kids are involved, and they want to be involved because like it's a cool thing. And like the local community, the local Viking community has just adopted them completely. Like when they come, like people are like, hey, Mama and Papa Rowe, and whatever. But like, so my dad,
Yeah.
will be, tending the fire, or cooking, or doing something like that. My mom's crafting, doing, she took a basket weaving class that one of the Vikings taught at our event, at our Farm Wars event, last summer. And she's like, man, I really want to do more basket weaving. Are you, is Jesse Dortch going to be there at this next, event? I got stuck on my basket weaving. I need some help. So it's kind of cool. It's really cute to see how much my parents got into it. And it literally was just because me and Sarah were doing it. And but it's something they can do and we can do together. That's a lot of fun. So it's really great that they do it with us.
Yeah. And like you say, I mean, you were busy to begin with, didn't think you'd have time for reenactment. And then you went and had a kid. And so now you brought that into it as well.
Oh yeah, it's there's nothing, we don't do anything unless it's 100 miles an hour. So it's
yeah.
but like it's cool because like, we just bring Cash with us. Like he go where we go, he goes. So like when we went to Germany, he came with us. You know what I mean? Like when we're going, we're planning to go, we're gonna try our absolute best to go to Sletten and Vollen this year. So Sletten's in Denmark and Vollen's in Poland.
I looked at Sletten last week, funnily enough.
You what?
I was looking at Sletten just last week.
Oh yeah.
A friend of mine, I think, is planning to go over there.
So I went by myself last year, right? Like it just so happened that the timing worked out that we didn't have anything on that weekend, and Sarah was like, you should go, right? I had, some friends that were going, and we had enough like frequent flyer miles banked up that I was able to just go. Like she was like, just you should go. Like, because and I always feel guilty, like, because she loves to do Viking stuff too. And I was like, well, but it's just me going. Like, why don't we go? And she was like, I can't. Like, I need to stay here with Cash, whatever. With wrestling travel, she's like, but you could go. So why don't you just go? And I'm like, well, all right, are you sure? And she's like, yeah, I got it. I got Cash. I got the farm. I got whatever. Just go. So we had, enough frequent flyer miles that I was able to go. And I think I paid like $17 or something like that for flights, which is incredible. So I went and it was crazy. So we both traveled to Raw, and wherever Raw was that week, I don't remember. I had my Viking bag packed, right? So I had my wrestling bag, and she took my wrestling bag home, and I had my Viking bag with my sword and my shield and my kit and all that stuff. And I flew directly from wherever we were to Denmark. Buddy of mine picked me up at the airport and took me to Sletten. So I got to Sletten, and I was there from like Wednesday morning through, Saturday or through Sunday morning. And I just threw my, my bedroll down in a buddy's tent, and I stayed there, and you fight all day and feast all night. And I mean, it was an amazing week. And then flew out Sunday and went straight to Raw. So I picked, I met Sarah wherever we were for Raw that week. And then, she brought my wrestling bag with me, left the Viking bag in a hotel, and we went right back to work. So it was, it was a really, really cool trip. And Sletten was amazing. Sletten was so much fun. I highly recommend any reenactor to go to Sletten. It's, if you're a Western style fighter, or if you're not a Western style fighter and you want to craft and you want to hang out and go to the market, whatever, it is an amazing market. It's like for Vikings by Vikings. It's a really, really good time. We're trying to go down. I would love nothing more than be able to go to Sletten and go to Vollen every single summer. It's not always possible, especially with our work schedule and our travel schedule. But I'm going to do my best to make to one of those events every single summer. This summer, my sincere hope is that we can do both. I'm going to try, whether that means we need to, take a vacation, or, go to Sletten, fly back for TV, and then fly back out for Vollen, whatever has to happen. We'll try to make it happen, because I really, really, really want to go to both.
Yeah. No, it does look fun. As I say, a friend recommended it to me just last week, so
Dude, I can't highly recommend it. It's an amazing time. I actually met one of there was a UK Viking group, Valhalla. I don't know if you were familiar with them or not, but
I'm not
I
sure.
met a
No.
couple guys. Yeah, I met a couple guys from the UK out there,
Yeah.
and ended up like as it just so happened, like just ran into them randomly, and like made friends with Vikings from the UK. And the one guy was ended up, and I think we started talking because he was a wrestling fan, and
Yeah.
we kind of passed in the lane, and he was like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
we started talking, and then like the next day we ended up on the line together, or like on the end of a line, and it's this guy named Ashley. And he was really good with like a one-handed spear and a shield, and I was fighting with a two-handed spear. So I ended up like, just the way it was, like we ended up on the edge of a line and like collapsing the line together. Like, and I was just like, I started talking to him, and I don't think he knew I was there. And I was like, hey, I'm on your hip. I'm on your hip. I'm on your hip. And like, he saw I was there. He dropped his one-handed spear, took his sword, and he just started defending me so I could get more aggressive. And like, we helped like fold this one half of the line. It was a really cool thing to like, I don't know, what I love about Viking events is like you make those friendships with people, and then you have these crazy memories and experiences that you wouldn't get in normal life, right? Like
Absolutely.
I wouldn't meet somebody and then within 12 hours, 14 hours having like an intimate conversation, or like a these interactions or these memories that I'm talking about like a year later. Like, oh man, this was so cool. Me and this dude, we ended up with this thing, and da 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 da. And like, but you have that opportunity at a Viking event, because like the beautiful thing is like with Viking reenactment, like no matter what car you drive to the event, right? You park that car in the parking lot, and the second you walk out of that parking lot, you are a Viking. And I know we're not really Vikings, all that stuff. Everybody on Twitter is going to get mad at me for saying that. But like, you go Viking,
Yeah.
go to these Viking events, and like, that's who you are, right? So who you are in the scene is who you are in the scene, like who you bring, right? Like, it doesn't matter how expensive my car is, or how expensive the house is, or how much money I make, or what I do for a job.
Mm.
When I come to a Viking event, I'm just a Viking. And what my value in the scene is what I bring to the scene. Like, am I a good fighter? Am I a good crafter? Am I a good communicator? Am I, a good organizer? Am I helpful around, am I chopping firewood? Am I carrying stuff? Am I cooking for people? Like, that's what matters. And it's that
Yeah.
like, everyone puts on the Viking kit, and it's like all of those barriers that we put up in modern day life are gone, right? Like, we don't have any brands on our t-shirts. We don't have any, designer clothes on or anything like that, right? Like, all those layers of like, I don't know if I can be friends with you, or this person might judge me, or whatever that we use to protect ourselves in modern day life
Yeah.
are gone in Vikings, because we're all kind of on an even footing. So I can just meet you honestly with my guard down, and you can meet me honestly with your guard down, and we can connect on a level that like forgoes all of that stuff. Like, usually it takes a while, like, right? If you meet somebody in your daily
Yeah.
life, even at work or at a coffee shop or whatever, it'll take you weeks, months, years, even to like break down those like barriers that you have to protect yourself, or kind of, like
Mm.
just barriers that you walk around with, right? Like, I'm not going to let someone hurt me, or I need to get to know you first before I trust you or interact with you. Like, with Vikings, I think it's something that like you're thrust into these events with people, and then you're meeting someone, and then working
Yeah.
shoulder to shoulder with them on a common goal, right? Whether that common goal is we're holding this hill, and that enemy is coming after us, and we're going to hold this hill, or it's we're going to build this fire, and there you've got an axe and I've got a shovel, and we're going to do this thing together. And now we're
Mm.
working shoulder to shoulder, and we're developing a camaraderie that doesn't exist outside of that Viking event. You know what I mean? And it's a true honest, it's a true honest connection that you have with somebody, but it's
Mm.
done under the context of a Viking event, that gives you the freedom to be able to connect on that level. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I think that's something that like a lot of us don't get to experience. And that's what drives me back, no matter how busy we are, no matter how hectic our schedule is. That's that magic that brings me back to Viking events over and over and over again, because we can put away our phones, we can put away our real lives, and we can just be and interact honestly with people on a level that it doesn't exist in many other circles, you know. And I'm sure other niche groups have the phenomenon, but I've found it in Vikings, and it's something that I can't go without.
I think that's it. I think it's it's almost shorthand, because everyone goes to these events, but you already know that you've already got the same interest, right? Because you're already into the Vikings, you're into camping, you're into fighting, or whatever it is, whichever element you like. And so you've almost got that shorthand where you're already friends.
You just and it's like I've never met so many people that I was already friends with. I just didn't know it yet. You know what I mean? Like you meet somebody and you're like, oh man, I feel like I've known you for 10 years and I've known you for 10 hours, you know? So it's a really, really cool community, and it's a really inclusive and safe community where like you can just be honest and be yourself. And I think that having that shared interest, you know what I mean? That shared interest, and then the shared work and the shared, like, you know, you and I are doing something together, and then we're gonna get to know each other faster than we would if we were just, you know, messaging online or you know, I'd say hi to you at a coffee shop or whatever.
Yeah. So you mentioned when you were in Denmark that someone recognized you from WWE.
Yep.
And I did have a question related to that.
Sure.
I wonder, because your Lokallag has grown quite a bit over the last year, 2 years.
Last 2 years.
So I just wondered whether you ever get fans, knowingly or not, either turning up to training for your group or even at reenactment events. They're not in a stalkerish way, but do people just be like, I know he's going to be there, I'm going to go and say hey?
So you know, if that has happened at a reenactment event, I'm not aware of that. And like especially if I go to a Scandinavian reenactment event, because WWE doesn't, or pro wrestling isn't really like culturally popular in Scandinavia. So a lot of the Vikings over there have no clue what the WWE is. They kind of have like a vague notion of like Hulk Hogan was a pro wrestler at one point, you know what I mean? But it's not part of like the pop culture kind of like ethos, right? Like it is in America and the UK and, you know, Japan and parts of Europe and stuff like that. So like if I go to Denmark, for example, I can disappear for the most part, and, you know, like wrestling's kind of a funny thing. It's kind of like being in like a very specific genre of metal or whatever. Like in the niche of wrestling fans, I might be a big deal, but in the wider public, nobody knows who I am, which is really nice. So it's not like, you know, it's a weird thing when people like tell me I'm a celebrity or I'm famous or whatever, because I just think I'm a dumb kid from Cleveland, right? But then I meet somebody who's a wrestling fan, and they're like, you know, like, oh my God, I've always wanted to meet you. And it kind of takes me back, because I'm like, oh man, like to that niche audience, there is a level of celebrity. There is a level of, you know, being larger than life kind of. And that's a responsibility that I really do try to live up to. Because it's something that, like, if I could be a role model for kids, like, oh my gosh, what bigger responsibility is there? You know what I mean? So like, I am conscious of that, and I try to be aware of that, but like, I don't feel worthy of that. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, I'm just, like I said, I'm just a dumb kid from Cleveland. So like when I go to Scandinavian events, like nobody watches wrestling. So I'm just another guy, you know, I'm just another spear fighter or, you know, shield fighter or whatever. So like, I just, so it's a rarity when someone, you know, recognizes me at, you know, in Europe at an event, whatever. Here it's a little more common. But like the group in Lokallag specifically, like my group is like, very protective of me and Sarah, right? Because they know, like, when we come to do Viking stuff, we, you know, it's kind of like our off time, right? Like We're not wrestling. We're not, in the public eye. We're not, kind of doing things, consumable things, right? Like we don't do it for Instagram or for the likes or, for a brand or for our image or anything like that. So like, it's not our professional time. So like our group specifically really is very protective of that. So if someone is like, kind of too much, or someone is kind of like that way, like, oh man, I need to, I like some guys will have like friends who are big wrestling fans. Like some of the fighters that are in our group have told me like, hey, this guy I work with is a big wrestling fan. He keeps asking me, can I come to a training and meet you? And I'm like, no, like that's not why we go to training. We go to training to sword fight. We go to training to be, around Vikings. Like it's not like you're not going to go up to Ray and be when he's sword fighting and be like, hey, can you sign an autograph or can you do whatever? Like, because then it kind of does be a little stalkery, you know what I mean? Like, but and not to say like if I met somebody, whenever I've met Vikings who are also wrestling fans, it's always been wonderful interactions. I'm not trying to say that, or and if I, sometimes you're in the grocery store or whatever, and you run into a wrestling fan, and they're like, you kind of do that like double take, like, oh my gosh, and then when I talk, and I've never had any bad interactions. I've never had anybody that like, was disrespectful in real life, which I'm very thankful for. I know some people have unfortunately dealt with, stalkers or people, violent people, fans who got violent, or maybe, got catfished by someone and felt like that they were, taken advantage of. And so then they try to attack, wrestlers. And it's that can be kind of a scary thing. Thankfully, my interactions with wrestling fans have been by and large positive, almost exclusively, right? Like it is a wonderful opportunity that we get to do these things, and fans are the reason why we get to do them, because with no fans, no audience, like it's just me falling down in an empty ring. You know what I mean? Like, so like I've not experienced any kind of weirdness or badness or, awkwardness really. It's generally surprise on like the guy, when I met Ashley at Sletton, he literally, we walked by each other and he was like, what are you doing here? Like that, what? And I was like, oh yeah, I'm a reenactor from the US. And he was like, yeah, but why are you here? And I was like, well, I, wasn't wrestling today, so I wanted to come here. And he was like, wow, oh man. And then, it's been similar stuff to that. Like, I've ran into people, wrestling fans that are in, like at a grocery store or whatever. And they're like, why are you here? And I'm like, well, I live in Cleveland, and they're like, oh, okay. And then, go about their day. Or, it's a lot more common to run into wrestling fans randomly like that when you're on the road. But I'm pretty open about the fact I live in Cleveland. I'm born and raised in Cleveland. My family's in Cleveland. I'm very proud of being from Cleveland. So I run into wrestling fans every once in a while, but yeah, no, not really in the Viking group. There's a couple guys who will be kind of embarrassed about it. Like, hey, my kid or my cousin or my, whatever, my nephew, he's a big fan. Like, would it be okay if you sign something? And they always kind of feel bad about it. I'm like, dude, yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to do that. If there's anything I can do to make your family or your friends happy, like I'm happy to do it. Like, whatever, like we can do that. But it's not really I think Vikings is so separate that it's kind of a cool thing that Sarah and I can just do. And we're just, like I said, like that thing about the cars, right? Like once we're Vikings, and that's all we have to think about. So it's a really magical thing where you can do that and kind of just disappear.
I can say you could almost give yourself a rule, because I know you guys have to earn your crosses on your shields.
Yep.
We don't sign anything until you've earned your crosses, because then they have to show a level of dedication, right?
Yeah, maybe we'll talk. I'll talk to my training officer about that. Yeah, that's Sarah. Sarah's meaner than me. I'm it's funny that everybody like will always apologize to me because I'm 6'1", 250 pounds, covered in tattoos. Everybody like, oh, you're scary or whatever, and I'm like, dude, you got to talk to this one. She's the scary one. So
Because one of the other things that we originally, I suppose, bonded over on Instagram was Morforge.
Oh, dude, I want to go there so bad. I'm so jealous that you
You're
go.
welcome anytime.
Yeah, I really want to go and take one of those the deer processing courses that you do with I can't remember the guy that it's Pictavia Leather on
Yeah,
Instagram. I
Hamish.
can't remember his name. Hamish.
Hamish. Yeah.
Yeah. When you guys do those courses, I man, I think that's the coolest thing ever because it's you're doing the butchery and he's doing the tanning and the right,
Yeah.
like the skin, the treating of the skin. Like,
Yeah.
dude, I think that's fascinating. I really one of these times the stars are going to align, and Sarah and I are going to be able to take those courses. I'm going to be so happy.
The next
Yeah,
one, yeah, we got. I think we did the first one last year at Easter, and we're doing this Easter as well, which is I think
okay.
half sold out already.
Yeah.
By the time this goes out, if anyone's interested and it hasn't sold out, get a ticket, but it might have sold out before this goes out. We'll probably do it again next year. I mean, but it's usually Easter time.
Yeah. Does that kind of correlate with your guys' hunting seasons over there? Is that why you do it then?
No, so here, the deer hunting season, you can pretty much hunt all year round. It just changes from male to female.
Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah, I think that the concept is amazing. I think it's a fascinating concept. And I would love to I like to learn, right? Like I know like Sarah and I, butcher our own meat at home and we do all that stuff, but like someone does it differently, right? Like I guarantee you're going to do something differently than I do. So I'd love to learn because like maybe I'll just do it your way and be like, oh, that's cool. And then do it my way. But I might do something and be like, oh, that angle of the knife or that, approach is something that could inform me. Like, and I think that classes like that are fascinating. But I think that's so cool. And to do it at that setting, right? Like Morforge is such a beautiful site. And it's something awesome. That like Sarah and I bought our farm here with the intention of building a long haul, right? Like that was the reason we chose this specific farm is because we had the intention of building a Viking long haul. And it's something that we're hoping, we're knock on wood, something that we're going to be able to break ground on this spring. And so like I've been fascinated by places that do have Viking halls and what their construction is like and how they built and like why they built and how it's working. So like when I saw Morforge, I was like fascinated because like their stuff is like the real deal. Like it's done historically. It's it's got that authentic look and that authentic feel that I think some places are just like a Viking pole barn. You know what I mean? Like some places in America, at least, are just like a Viking pole barn where it's like that's not really done historically. It's a beautiful building and it's a beautiful site, but it's not like actually done how it was done. And Morforge seems like it's actually done how it's actually done, and it's a fascinating site to really look at. I'd love to spend some time there. So it's the stars have to align and schedules have to align and make it.
You can learn a lot from David.
Yeah. Oh, dude, he was so giving and helpful when I was asking him questions and bouncing stuff off him, which is really, really cool. I think that's my favorite thing about social media is that it's connected the world in a way that like when, I bought your cookbook and I had a question, so I just shot you a message. And you saw it and responded. And I was like, wow, this is, this author of this book that I liked thought enough to respond to me. Like, that's a really cool thing. And like with David from Morforge, he's built this Viking long haul and like built this whole site. And I had some questions because I'd like to build my own. And I sent him a message and he responded and was like, this is amazing. I think that's the beauty of social media, that there's that instant connection where like, before that, I would have had to see you in like a magazine or something and write a letter and hope that letter got to you. And you know what I mean? Like where like, I think I saw something from your Instagram and I was like, oh, that's Eat Like a Viking. I can just shoot him a message and, he'll see it or he won't, but at least I'll shoot it. And if he doesn't see it, then I'll like comment like, hey, shot you a DM, like, did you see it? I had a question for you. And like that works, because like social media, like it works in those ways. So that's a beautiful thing. I think that's a really special thing about social media, and that it connected all of these people with similar interests, or give you instantaneous access to it. It's just the problem when people decide to get really, really negative with it. That's when it can get bad.
Mm. Yeah, if you ever decide to build something, then I mean, David runs courses as well in building, whilst he's building. So, if you need to learn some other skills.
Yeah, hey, I'm wanting to learn it all. We've like we've got some we're in the planning stages still. So we're I had somebody that was going to help us frame, and he was really experienced with timber framing, and really, um had some really good ideas and suggestions, and kind of informed the way we were looking at things. And then he's got some health problems, so he had to drop out of the project. So we're in the planning stages and kind of gathering our resources, how much we can do ourselves, how much we want to bring somebody in to kind of help. And it's going to be a kind of a communal effort, I think, with our group, Lock Your Legs. So we host of Viking reenactment events on some private property, and like so it's something that we try to do.
Yeah, I think you mentioned already earlier, but so you had your first sort of big group event on your farm last year too, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. We had we had done an event the year prior in 2022. And then it was we called it Farm Wars, right? Because it's on a farm. So we called it Farm Wars, and it was really good. It was, I don't know, we had right around 100 Vikings and probably like 70 fighters. But we did fights, and we did camps and encampments and classes, and so there was crafting, and there was fighting, and there was feasting. It was a lot of fun. And then we actually hosted so like Sarah and I are oath sworn members of the Army of Jomsborg, which is the largest international army of Viking reenactors on the planet. We are part of they're kind of like their world is divided up into storms, right? So like the Jomsborg is the giant organization, and then the storms are north, south, east, and west are all in Europe, and then Utland Storm is the storm that we're a part of in America, right? And that covers North and South America. And then there's nine chapters, right, that are called logs. And Lockyer Log is one of those 9 chapters in Utland Storm, right? So each year Utland Storm has an all thing, which all of the 9 chapters try to attend and try to go to, and it rotates, right? Different groups will host it. And last year or this year, I guess, last year, 2023 was our turn.
Yeah.
So we hosted the all thing, and like we also invited non-Jomsborg groups, because that's something really big that we're trying to do in the scene here, right? Like we're trying to kind of put out that wider tent, and involve more than just our organization, right? I want to any friendly Viking reenacting groups we want to bring to this event. And so we actually hosted the largest Viking reenactment event in American history. So we had between 325 and 350 people, and of those, just under 200 fighters. It was incredible. It was like a long weekend, so it was like Thursday to Sunday, and there was fighting and crafting on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We had a full market. We had, I don't know, probably between 15 and 20 different vendors there, and people teaching classes and doing like historic crafts. And there was historic blacksmithing and bead making and cooking. I mean, it was a beautiful thing. There's I think Lock Your Leg has a YouTube page, and they did like I don't run the social media, and I don't run the online stuff for Lock Your Leg, which is why I'm not 100% sure. But I'm pretty sure we've got a YouTube page that has like a shorter highlight reel, and then a longer kind of video about it. But it was a really beautiful thing to see so many different groups come together. I think there was like 34 different Viking groups, or 37 different Viking groups that were all represented at that event. And like I said, it was a really, really, really cool thing to have so many Vikings together building something. Because like now, 350 people might not sound like that many to for a European event, but for America, that was the biggest Viking event that's ever existed here. So we're just trying to build on that year after year. So we're in the planning stages of Farm Wars 2024. It's that's kind of my passion project. Like I'm gonna do a Farm Wars every year. I'm gonna host that event, and I'm gonna try to do it, better and better and better and better. Right. We took a lot of feedback. It was a lot of learning curves to go from 100 people to like over 300 people. Some stuff was really good. Some stuff needs to be improved. And like, so we learned a lot. We learned some lessons the hard way, and I'm trying to do it better this year. I don't know if it'll be quite as big because it won't be the all thing. Right. So not quite. I don't think as many sport guys will travel to it because it's not, usually some people with our jobs over here and our vacation, you only get one Viking event a year, which is as sad as that is. So there might not be 300 people this year. It might only be, I'd be real happy if we had 200 people. But who knows? It might be 300 again. I don't know. We'll see how it shakes out. But I'm very, very happy and proud to be hosting those events and, being able to do them year after year is something that is really exciting for me and for Lock Your Lag, our local group who I couldn't, it's not, I say I host it, we host it, right? Like, there's only so much that I can physically do. My guys are rock stars, like rock stars. I could spend the rest of the podcast just talking about how much they worked, and we like cleared a bunch of land. We, did all this stuff. We set up tents. It was a Herculean effort from a lot of people in the group. And then hosting the event itself, they're doing the check-in desk, they're cooking for everybody, they're cleaning up after everybody there. It was amazing. We took on like a motto. Like we started calling ourselves Lock Your Last, right? We ate last, we fought last, we slept last, we did all the things because we made sure everybody else went first, and then it was Lock Your Last, right? Like we were just doing it after everybody else, like make sure all the guests were there, all the attendants were there, all the stuff, and then okay, cool, now it's time for us to eat, or oh, now it's time for us to sit down, or now it's time for us to have fun. Like everyone else needed to be taken care of first, right? And the guys to just be that like selfless and be that like I've never been so more proud of a group that I helped run than this. Like I've coached a bunch of different teams, and I've done different stuff, but like I've never been more proud of a group of guys that I've had the honor to kind of lead and coach than I was at Lock Your Lag at our all event. They were incredible. And it was stuff was happening without me like directly being like, someone would come to me with a problem and I would turn to like delegate or like, hey, can you help me? And people were already like gone, like done. The guys in the gold hoods were just like, man, they were everywhere. It was incredible. It was incredible.
Yeah. So anyone that's listened to the episode before, as I said, we've covered a lot of hunting stuff with Sarah, so which is your other passion. But there was a question I found that I never got around to asking Sarah, so it's probably worth asking you.
Yeah.
So you guys are very particular about what you eat, which is why you farm and hunt.
Yes.
So I wondered how you deal with that being on the road so often.
So it's complicated answer or complicated question, complicated or simple question, complicated answer, right? So as much as possible, we do try to bring food with us. But when we're going for longer trips or longer whatever, that's not a thing that we can do. So you kind of go with good, better, best, right? Like obviously best case is we're eating stuff that we grow ourselves, farm ourselves, hunt ourselves, prepare ourselves. When we can't do that, we're trying to like, all right, well, that's not the best, then we try to do better, right? We're trying to find local grocers or farm markets or, organic type, natural stuff
Yeah.
where we can. If we can't do that, then it's, then we do good, and we just try to get the most unprocessed and we try to get the best available, right? And now it doesn't
Sure.
always work. So like traveling sometimes is necessary evils, right? You're trying to choose the least bad option. But we definitely go the hard way more often than not, because it's like, all right, well, we're only gone for a night. We can pack food, or we're only gone for 2 days. Let's go to a Whole Food and let's make sure that what the hotel has a kitchen, or you know what I mean. And then if not that, then all right, well, we know this restaurant or this grocer or this whatever has cleaner food or cleaner whatever. So it's a struggle. Sometimes it makes it a little more complicated, but it's worth it. You only get one body,
Yeah.
so what you put into it is important. I can't remember the last time I've gone through like a drive-through or something like that. You know what I mean? Like it's just, that's not something that we do. And it's definitely makes things less convenient, but I think it's a better thing to do overall for us. It's not right for everybody, but that's a decision we've made for us and for our family.
Yeah. How does Cash take the food you give him? Is he happy to eat whatever you throw at him?
So he's pretty selective, but like he eats amazing. He eats like almost a pound of ground beef a day. So every single day we like, and now we've offered him all kinds of stuff, right? We've also offered him chicken and steak and lamb shanks and whatever we're deer, whatever we're eating, we offer him. But he really likes ground beef. And we happen to have a farm where we produce ground beef. So it works out really well because we know it's the healthiest stuff in the world for him. But like he recently has developed a love of blueberries. So he will take, he's got this little bowl, and that's his blueberry bowl, which is funny because if we give him blueberries in another bowl, he will transfer them into his blueberry bowl. And then he'll sit down and he grabs one, and he'll look at it and then eat it. And, he eats them, and then he'll bring it back up to you, and he knows that the blueberries are in the fridge. So he'll like, he'll take you over to the fridge sometimes. He's like, hey, he's telling us blueberries. So we give him some more blueberries, and then he'll go and sit down and eat however much that takes, and then bring us back. So like, and like, we try to always offer him like options, right? We're giving him eggs, we're giving him beef, we're giving him fruit, we're giving him, whatever we can. And we do the same with us. Like, it's the healthiest option of all times. It's organic, it's natural, it's unprocessed, it's whatever. But like, he is really easier on us than we probably deserve. Like he just goes. Yeah, well, I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will, and I'm sure he'll have his own food journeys just like Sarah and I did. But like right now, what we eat, he eats. You know what I mean? Like we just make sure that he's always got meat and berries and meat and fruit, and he eats bananas and apples, and you know what I mean. Like he loves broccoli. Like when we go over to my parents' house, my parents make broccoli a lot, and like he'll like peek his head up over the table and like just reach up and grab broccoli off people's plates and smash it. And like we give him his own little plate, but he doesn't want those. He wants, he knows that my dad is my dad is no longer the scary father that I grew up with. He's a full-time grandpa. He's an old guy trying to get into heaven now. Grampy is a soft touch. So Cass just like pushes him, climbs up on his lap, and he'll just eat all his whatever off that plate, right? If my dad's got cheese, he's eating the cheese. If he's got broccoli, he's eating the broccoli. If it's whatever it is,
tastes better if you steal it.
yeah. It definitely does. He's he's big like me and mean like Sarah, so it's it works out. The crime, I think, tastes better to him. So he bullies people and steals their food. But it's we just try to include him in whatever we're doing. And like he travels with us. He he's constantly. We're very fortunate and I'm very thankful for the fact that Cash has never been around with someone or not surrounded by people that love him. whether that is my, my family, Sarah's family, obviously me and her, or like our friends, or, people who, we've got a friend who's actually part of Yamsborg who comes on the road with us when my dad can't come with us. Our as Sarah likes to call her, our Viking nanny, will come. She'll travel with us because she's self-employed, right? She's a full-time Viking seamstress. She's amazing, by the way. Quick shout out is Outlander Clothing. She every stitch of Viking clothing that Sarah and I wear is made by her at Outlander Clothing. But she's also our like Viking nanny, right? And Cash loves his Auntie JJ. So like she'll travel. She can travel with us, so she goes wherever we go. Where if I can't bring my dad, we bring JJ, and she's able to help us with Cash, and so Sarah and I can go wrestle, we can fight, we can do whatever we're doing. But it's a really fortunate, and I'm very thankful for the fact that we're able to keep him with us so much. And as he gets older, it'll just continue. Like, we'll be homeschooling him, and we'll be, traveling with him, and we'll be, doing all the things to keep the family together. That's something that's very, very important to me and Sarah. Like, it's kind of, when we restructured our lives to be Vikings, we're restructuring our lives to be, active parents and keep him in our life. And we'll be, we're already starting, like, he's about to be 3 in February, so it's not really like official school, but like, we're trying to like do research into homeschooling and trying to figure out, like, oh, well, learning these different things, or how we're teaching him, or, doing all this stuff. And like both my sisters homeschool their kids. 2 out of 3 of my sisters, my younger sister doesn't have kids of her own. But like my 2 older sisters, they homeschool their kids. So we've got like that support system of like, how to do it. And like, they both do it very differently, but it works for them. So that whole takes a village thing is very real for us. So we have a wonderful support system that really, really works. And very fortunate for that.
No, it's nice. And like you say, because you can spend so much time with Cash as well, you're never really away from him for a long period of time, because it is tough. I've traveled and been away, and I hate it.
Yeah, it's rough. Like, if I travel, or if Sarah travels, like, one of us traveling without the other, and you're away from the family, that's hard, man. That's really hard.
Yeah, definitely. So we've been chatting for an hour and a half. I think you've got about another half an hour and you need to go out, right?
Actually, I think we're getting pretty close to the
getting
time.
pretty close.
Yeah. So if you guys, unfortunately,
I was going to say,
we're about out of it, but I got a couple more minutes. If there was, I think you wanted to do
there are those questions that I ask everybody. So shall we run through those real quick?
Yeah, let's do those, and then I think Sarah's,
I'll let you get on.
Banging on me on the door.
Yeah. All right. So first one is, if you had an unlimited budget, what would be your dream project?
My dream project?
Yeah.
Oh, Viking Village in the backyard. Absolutely. No questions whatsoever. I would hire people like David and the guy who did the long haul in Ribe, Denmark.
Yeah.
And just no budget whatsoever. Yeah, I would have like a 300 foot long haul. You know what I mean? Like, just a massive place to host Viking events. I would buy a big piece of property, and I would host Viking events like every couple months, and 3-4 times a year, and just really have a full functioning Viking village where Sarah would probably live 6 months out of the year, eating exclusively over fire, and that type of thing.
Yeah. So next question, I probably don't need to ask you, but as I said, I ask everyone these. So do you think you could survive on a Viking age diet?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I would, it's actually something that we talk about. If we're able to build that long haul like we want to, Sarah and I want to do all right, we're going to spend a month out here, and we're only going to, we might start with like a deer, that we've hunted, and then that's what we're going to do. And then we'll preserve that, and then, do it try to do it like that little challenge for ourselves. So it's something that we talk about a lot.
Yeah. So following on from that, is there any food you'd miss on a Viking Age diet?
No, I mean, because like for us, like I eat pretty much like mostly animal based right now, anyways. So I'm pretty much like meat and dairy, and you know, every once in a while, like vegetables or stuff like that. But I'm not really big on eating vegetables or starches or grains or anything like that. So it's no, yeah. I mean, I would probably eat more sheep than I do now if I was on a pure Viking Age diet, because that they definitely ate more lamb and goat than they did beef. So that would be a change.
Yeah.
But lamb and goat is amazing. So yeah, I don't think I would really be too much of a problem. Sarah and I kind of laugh sometimes because we talk about how we're more like Viking Age people than a lot of our Viking reenactor friends, because like we actually have a farm and we actually will butcher our own meat and we actually will do these things. And then we go Viking and go to an event and go fight and stuff like that, and then come home to the farm, but it's because that was kind of like they were a very like agriculture, an agricultural society where farmland was really, really important. That's why they put up settlements in Ireland. That's why they put up settlements in England, and because they wanted to farm, they wanted to work the land and provide for themselves and provide for their family. So yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. We would need to start milking some goats and not just milking the cows. But yeah, let's go.
All right. Next question is, what's the weirdest thing in your kitchen?
Well, I think when Sarah did your podcast, we had she was cooking beef tongue and oxtail, I think.
Yeah. That was her answer, was tongue.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've always got an assortment of organ meats, which is weird to a lot of people and normal to a lot of people, other people. So like that would probably be like the weirdest food stuff in our kitchen at any one time. Unless we have some kind of, bones or something that's kind of drying out for stuff, then it's kind of weird. But I don't know, it's not weird to me, but it's it's definitely weird to a lot of people. So yeah, usually some type of organs. Our right now we've got several pounds of beef liver that's thawing out. Oh, actually, and a bear roast. Sarah's gonna make a bear roast tonight. So there's a bear roast defrosting in the black bear defrosting in the sink right now. So
something I would like to try. We don't get it here,
dude. It is if we have any left, we will for sure. If you come and visit, I'll make sure to do that. It tastes like sweet beef. We got our bear, both of us, when we shot our bears. It was right after the summer, so they had just come off like a spring and early summer of eating berries, blackberries, blueberries, all that stuff. So their fat was actually tinted a little pink or a little like purple and blue from all the berries they were eating. It tastes like sweet beef because it's really fatty and really rich, but there's a sweetness to it that's not in beef. It's incredible. It's incredible.
So next question is, what's the worst food you've ever had? Or drink. Some people go for drink.
No. So the worst thing I ever had was a surprise. It wasn't that it was necessarily so bad, but it was because it's not what I thought it was. A buddy of mine gave me when I was in Japan, I stopped at a convenience store. I was about to take a train, and I stopped at a little Lawson convenience store, and I grabbed what I thought was a rice and salmon thing. I've been going into those convenience stores the whole time I was in Japan, and it was an eel or an octopus thing. And I wasn't prepared for that taste. When I'm not really a fan of octopus, anyways, or eel. I'll eat it, but it's not my favorite. And I was expecting salmon. And so I took like a big bite, and I got kind of this weird sensation. And it was one of the first times ever, like I spit out what I was eating, and I was like, oh man. And I saw it, and I was like, because obviously the thing wasn't in, I just grabbed the wrong one. And I was thoroughly grossed out because I was not prepared for that. But I was in Japan, so I was very polite about it. I like went to the corner, and saw it and then threw it away. I didn't want to offend anybody, but I was not prepared for octopus at that point. I was expecting salmon, and my brain like short circuited. I was like, oh, whoa, what was that? Yeah, that for me so far is the grossest. Now, you probably have a better grossest story than I do.
Oh, how long you got?
Yeah. I imagine you've
know.
done like the fermented shark and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's not as bad as people say. Surströmming is terrible. That's the one in the can that's fermented in the can.
Sure.
Tripe I struggle with.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, texture thing.
Oh, okay. So I like haggis, tripe, all that stuff. Man, I love it.
What about raw eggs? You do raw eggs? I did that recently, and as soon as it hit the back of my throat, it came straight back up.
No, no problem.
Couldn't get it. The smell is horrible.
You can put four or five raw eggs, like Rocky, in a cup. I'll drink them, no problem. Yeah, no problem at all.
Automatic reflux for me as soon as it hit my throat.
Oh yeah, yep. That's what happened to me with the octopus. I was just like, oh my god, wasn't prepared.
All right, so there's 2 more questions left, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. So, what's the most memorable meal you've ever had?
Man, that's so there's one that's memorable for the food that I ate. And again, this was in Japan. We went to it was me and I don't know, 6 or 7 wrestlers, and one of the sponsors took us out to a restaurant that was famous for horse. And it was something I had never eaten before. And it was like a multi-course dinner with like a bunch of small plates, and it was all a bunch of different types of horse meat. So there was like horse sashimi, and there was horse like thin cut shaved horse, like cooked and served over a salad. There was a horse steak, which is probably in the top 2 or 3 steaks that I've ever eaten in my entire life. It was incredible. It was just a amazing. I didn't know what I was expecting. I didn't know what horse was going to taste like. I knew that we typically in America don't eat horse, so it was kind of a taboo thing too. But it was a very traditional restaurant. It was a very traditional meal, and it was cool because like it was a bunch of American wrestlers who had never eaten horse before. I think there was one guy there who had done it before, so he was kept like looking at us like, "Are you gonna be weirded out? You're gonna be weirded out?" But it was amazing. It tasted really, really good. And like I said, it was like probably the top 2 or 3 meals steaks that I've ever had in my entire life. And steak is my favorite food. And then the other like most memorable meal that I've ever had was the very first time that I served a venison that I had harvested. I was a late onset hunter. I did not grow up hunting. My parents or family didn't hunt. I went hunting for the first time after Sarah and I got married. Like a couple days later, right? Like we got married on December 21st. On Christmas Eve, or on like the December 23rd, I think her parents gifted me a crossbow. And we went out and hunted like on Christmas Eve. I didn't see anything other than some squirrels. But the next hunting season around, I was able to take harvested a buck, and we field dressed him ourselves. I took the back straps, and I took the back straps and cooked them, and we actually served dinner for Sarah and my parents. They had come over, and it was that, like, because before I went hunting, I didn't know how I'd feel about it, right? Like, I was so disconnected to my food. Meat came from the
Yeah,
store. It didn't come from me. This was the
sure.
first animal that I had harvested myself. I drug it out of the woods myself. We butchered it. We did all the things, and like, I didn't know how I was going to feel about it emotionally. But when I
Mm,
served it for dinner, it came full circle, and I was like, this was a beautiful thing. And like, it was a really powerful moment that I'll never forget, because I have never been so proud as putting a meal on the table as I did that first time, because it was like I said, it was my very first deer. It was my very first thing that I
mm,
had cooked from meat that I had harvested myself, and I was able to
yeah.
serve it to family, and I was able to kind of take that full circle moment in, and it changed my life, because we continued to hunt, and then now we're in a farm, and now we're kind of um, doing that with every meal, right? Like, most of the things we eat here come directly from our farm. It's very rare that
Mm.
we're eating something here that don't come from our farm. So it like, I think that meal changed my life.
And I think backstrap is very underrated. I think it's one of the best cuts of meat you can get from
No, it's
venison.
incredible.
Ah,
Oh, it's incredible.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
incredible. And I didn't do
Mm.
anything fancy. I literally didn't, like, I cut it into medallions, and I pan fried it in butter and
Spot
salt and
on.
pepper.
Yeah,
That's it. Like,
yeah.
that's it. Like,
That's all
nothing
you
crazy.
need.
Yeah, nothing crazy. And
Yeah.
I had nothing, I think we served like mashed potatoes with it or something. You know what I mean? It was nothing like, it wasn't like a fancy meal. It wasn't this big extravagant thing. It was just backstrap and cooked in butter, and
Yeah.
the people that I love. So it was
Yeah.
yeah, but like I said, that meal and harvesting my own meat and serving it to my family changed my life. So that is my most memorable meal.
Awesome. Right. So one last question. So you've died and your relatives are preparing your grave goods. What food and drink do you get to take to feast in Valhalla?
Steak and room temperature water. That's maybe an espresso coffee. That's about
Yeah.
it. I'm straight edge, so I don't drink.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
everybody that knows me really well knows that I don't drink cold water. I do not like ice water.
Yeah.
It's room temperature or it's nothing. If I'm given a cold water and I'm not like really really thirsty, I will just let it cool down, or let it
Warm
warm
up.
up
Yeah.
before I drink it. Yeah, I don't prefer. I don't know. I don't know. It's been like way my whole life. I just don't like it.
Yeah.
Or maybe like black coffee. If that's what I've been drinking out of, right. I've got we got ourselves an espresso maker for Christmas, so I've been enjoying espresso. But it's yeah, black coffee, room temperature water, and steak. That's me.
Awesome.
That's
Yeah.
the I'm happy. I don't need anything fancier than that. Every once in a while, if you want to put some cream on the coffee, that's great, especially if it's raw cream from a cow that comes from your farm. That's about the best you can get.
Yeah. Awesome. So, is there anywhere people can follow you online or anything you want people to check out? Social media, anything like that?
Yeah, so it's Erik underscore WWE on Instagram. It's also on Twitter too, but I would be honest, I would be lying to you if I said I've signed into my Twitter in the last probably three to 6 months. I oftentimes forget that I have it. But I put wrestling content, I put Viking reenactment content up on Erik underscore WWE. My one of my Vikings, his name's Steven. He is the webmaster for our Viking group, Lock Ear Lag. I know it's at Lock Ear Lag.
Yeah.
Um, that's where all of our Viking stuff goes online. And there's a Facebook group, I think, Lake Erie Vikings. And we put up content. We're constantly every week putting up content of training, of crafting, of fighting, of whatever. But it's Lock Your Lag on Instagram is the easiest accessible one. And that's the same thing. We're putting up stuff all the time. It's going up. So if you want to see Vikings, you want to see Viking reenactment, I'm at Lock Your Lag. If you want to see pro wrestling, it's Erik _ WWE.
Awesome.
I'll also put some farm and cash and Viking stuff up on Erik WWE, but it's far more pro wrestling than it is Vikings.
Yeah, well, I'll pop some links under the video so that makes it easier for people to find you.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'm sure there's a Lock Your Lag YouTube. As we've been talking about it, I know there's a Lock Your Lag YouTube, and there's going to be more and more content going up there from Viking events and stuff like that we do.
I'll hunt it out, and I'll pop a link underneath, and
I appreciate it.
I'll have a look myself.
We need to do so much social media and stuff like that for work that I try to kind of put my phone down as much as possible.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Well, thank you for your time. I think we've run over by a bit.
Yeah. That's how it happens when you're having good conversations. Greg, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much.
Look forward to talking to you again.
And you. And thank you everyone for listening or watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.
See ya.
If you enjoyed the show and want to hear more, remember to like and subscribe and give the show a rating. You can also help keep the show going by becoming a Patreon, where you'll get early access to all episodes. Or check out my range of merch on my store. Links are in the episode description. Thanks for watching.